Hi, my name is Candace James of Silver Bow Publishing, and I'm going to read Chapter 1 from Uriel Buitrago's new book called The Other House. This is a copy of the front cover, so I'm going to read Chapter 1. It's 5 in the morning. 3 knocks on the wall woke her up early in the morning, different from the ones she was used to when he wanted his medicine or when he needed to go to the bathroom. The knocks were so weak that they seemed to come from a very remote place. She reached for her slippers and slipped into them, then went to his room. "Tell me I am wrong," she said, taking his hand. She turned on the lamp on the little table, and then she realized Joe was dead. "You can't die without answering my question," she kept on talking. She just wanted to confirm her suspicion that Joe, her husband, who lived with another woman, was actually involved in the murder of Antonio. It was a question that had tormented her for all those years, and it was the reason she had promised her daughters to take care of their father during this past year. She hoped he would confess the truth. She turned off the lamp and opened the curtains. She also opened the window to ventilate his bedroom, and before leaving, she covered his face. In that year Joe lived in her house. She had contemplated the idea that when he died, she would never give the news to Rose, the other woman. She had no connection with her, only that they shared the same man for many years. So in her mind, she felt she had certain rights for taking care of him during his illness. She thought about the decisions she had to come to. First, she would make sure his funeral was in the Pavilion of Veterans, with a ceremony and military protocol. Then, as he had wished, she would bury him close to the fallen soldiers in the war. She picked up the phone and called Sarah, her daughter, to tell her what had happened. "Your dad died a few minutes ago," she said. She also told her daughter they needed to discuss some family matters before his burial. Her daughter cried, and she said a few words of comfort, then hung up the phone and went to the kitchen. She turned on the coffee maker as she did every day and absent-mindedly prepared 2 cups. Then she took all the little jars of medicine with tiny writing that explained the kind of medication and how each should be administered. Then she collected medical formulas, biopsy tests, and doctors' diagnoses that had accumulated throughout that year. She piled everything on the dining table and then put all of it in the trash. She followed the same routine every day, only today she started a few hours earlier. She moistened a cloth with wood lotion and proceeded to buff and make the piano shinier, and then went upstairs, shining the handrails as she climbed the staircase. She then descended, sweeping the stairs, and when she reached the living room, she looked at Joe's bedroom and saw his bare feet. She had never seen them before and hardly remembered any of his body features. During those 10 years she lived with Joe, she only saw him naked a few times, but did not recall any particular or peculiar trait on his body. She covered his feet with the blanket and closed the door of the room. Almost at 11, her 3 daughters arrived, Sarah the oldest, Linda, and Rosario. After a few warm greetings and hugs, Emily turned to the girls. "Before you go into his bedroom, I want to ask you a favor." She fidgeted a bit. "I took care of him all this past year, and therefore I have some rights." "Explain yourself, Mum," said Sarah. "I do not want her to know about his death. Mother, don't you think it's a little late to hold those grievances? I'm his wife, Emily replied. And she is the mother of his son, replied her daughter. If she wants to know, said Emily, let her come and find out. Oh, Mother, we've already decided. She needs to know. The family conversation was over. Emily called the funeral home to arrange Joe's funeral, and then she sat by the window. She saw Sarah crossing Oak Street. Before entering the courtyard of Rose's house, Sarah stopped on a small bridge surrounded by lilacs, bamboo stems, and some overgrown bushes that were the signal of an abandoned place. She looked at the house. It had nothing to attract the attention of anyone who passed by except for the column of smoke that rose from the chimney. The oak planted in the courtyard stood like the only authority that guarded the house. Sarah also looked at the small park space her father built when they were so little she and her sisters could play with her autistic brother. That was the place for the children. She noticed the space had lost the wooden tunnel, and the iron spider they once rode on was hidden under the grass. The carousel with its faded colors was tilted to the side, and one of the seats of the swing moved back and forth as the wind rushed through the park. Whoever passed by the other house on Oak Street wouldn't believe that children's shouting had once cheered the street in the afternoons of so long ago. That's the end of chapter 1. It's setting up the book nicely. And the book is a wonderful, wonderful work of fiction by Uriel Buitrago. It's, as one person put it, it's a gripping family saga whose fast pace and dramatic moments bring to life its myriad of original characters. And that's very true. It's like you're there, like you're in place. Anyway, enough about that. I am pleased to have read the first chapter to you, and now we will move on to the preamble to the launch and the actual launch. I hope you enjoy it, and if you require more information, you can always email info@silverbowlpublishing.com, and if you want to order the book, you just go into your local bookstore or library. If you want to buy it, bookstore. If you want to just read it and borrow it, library. If they don't have it in stock, they can easily order it through Ingram Spark iPage catalog. Thanks so much. The handsome writer of the
Absolutely.
best book I've ever read.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so anxious. I'm sorry. I have to admit I haven't read it, but I'm telling you that because of Candace's enthusiasm and the write-up here, I'm just really dying to get my hands on it. So I will do that.
Yeah, I went to Canada years ago. It was 1998.
Okay.
It was in Toronto.
Oh, yeah, that's Eastern Canada. So we're in Western Canada.
Yeah, beautiful city.
It is.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful city.
Yes.
And it was a scientific meeting. The eternal conflict in my life, you know, science pulling from one side and from the other side pulling the the literature. And yes. So yeah, that is an interesting point. Colombian and transplanted in the United States.
Yes. Yeah.
Quite a little bit. It's probably around 25, 26 years that I moved to United States to study, and
Very
that is
nice.
something that I can extend once we are talking about
Yes,
it.
exactly.
Most of the Latin American writers in United States, and that includes Canada, write about the Latin Americans in United States, let's say in North America, right? Their lives, the struggling for survival here in United States, but none of them have written the actual or describe the actual American family or the actual American life.
Right.
So what I am trying to say is the importance of the other house.
Yeah.
Is the fact that I will say probably I had no knowledge of other situation, but the other house is, I will say, the first novel written by a Latin American that talks about the American life. That's the first novel that I know, and I had read novels by different Latin American writers, such as well-established writers such as Diaz, who is he's from Dominican Republic, and he got already the novel, not the novel, but the Pulitzer Prize, and all his writing is about immigrants, Latin American immigrants. The other house is very much the first novel that written by a Latin American talking about the American families.
Yes, right, exactly. Cool.
Or talking about Americans.
Right.
This is like, of course, in a in different scale. Is the case of Hemingway, for example, writing about topics or the life in Spain, for example.
Right. Yes.
So that is probably like an analogy.
Yeah, it is an analogy for sure.
Yeah.
We take that for granted, right?
Yeah,
that American writers go write about other countries as if they're their home.
Yeah. As always in literature, and no matter what kind of component of literature is, it could be poetry or prose, anything that we write always is based on a single event that is very simple, but finally it's finished, and thanks to Candice that read the first draft and she liked it.
Yeah, no,
so she's been very much the the rescuer. Well,
she certainly speaks highly of you and the book. She really does. So
that makes me very happy.
Absolutely. Yeah. I should remind everybody that those of you that are here right now, that the recording is being, or the event is being recorded. So my name is Carol Johnson, and I'm really delighted to introduce to you on behalf of Silver Bow Publishing, Uriel Buitrago. So Uriel is a native of Colombia. He's a college professor and has taught at multiple colleges in the United States and abroad. He has also published short stories, poems, and several scientific articles. He is also editor in the field of natural sciences for publishers McGraw-Hill and Pearson. Uriel currently teaches biology at Oklahoma University. Today, Uriel is reading from his novel, The Other House. So today, Uriel is reading from his novel, The Other House. First, though, Candice of Silver Bow Publishing is going to say a few words.
Yes, that will be quite a feat because I very seldom say a few words, but today I shall. I am so happy to be the publisher of this wonderful work of fiction that Uriel has put together. It's an amazing story. Once you start reading it, you won't want to put it down because it's so interesting. It's dramatic in a very unique way. He's a wonderful writer, very unique. This is the cover of the book.
Yes, there it is.
Yeah, mine was disappearing because it's going into different realms.
Exactly. There you go. That's exactly.
Do you see it?
Yes.
Do you want to show it?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's perfect.
Sorry to interrupt you, Candice, but I like the cover, the color is amazing. You know how you did it. You know, it's I like it.
So Candace is an artist. And Candace, did you design that cover?
Yes, and I gave it a strange name. I think I called it GXO48Y.
Ah, okay. Well, there you go.
I knew that would grab you, Carol.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So now we can turn.
I have to say a few more words.
Okay, go.
Just a few more.
Yeah.
It never ends.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I want to say that it's what I love about this book is you really feel you know the people. I mean, it's like you're their neighbor or their relative or something. It's like you're right there, being in place. You're there with them and you're watching, but you're almost traveling along with them as a friend or a companion or a family member. It's a wonderful book. Anybody that doesn't read it will really miss out on something great and wonderful. Now, over to the main event, Uriel Buitrago.
So what did you want me to read now? The first chapter, or
whatever you think is best.
You know, this is my second time that I read. Well, I had read, you know, what I had written, you know, short stories some time ago in Chicago with my colleagues, you know, writers as well. But this is different. All right, so let's see, chapter number 1, and this is 5 in the morning, and it says this. It says, three knocks on the wall woke her up early in the morning, different from the ones she was used to when he wanted his medicine or when he needed to go to the bathroom. The knocks were so weak that they seemed to come from a very remote place. She reached for her slippers under the bed, slipped into them, then went to his room. Tell me, I am wrong, she said, taking his hand. She turned on the lamp on the little table, and then she realized Joe was dead. You can't die without answering my question. She kept talking. She just wanted to confirm her suspicion that Joe, her husband, who lived with another woman, was actually involved in the murder of Antonio. It was a question that had tormented her for all those years, and it was the question, and it was the reason she had promised her daughters to take care of their father during this past year. She hoped he would confess the truth. She turned off the lamp and opened the curtains. She also opened the window to ventilate his room. And before leaving, she covered his face. In that year, Joe lived in her house. She had contemplated the idea that when he died, she would never give the news to Rose, the other woman. She had no connections with her, only that they had shared the same man for many years. So in her mind, she felt she had certain rights for taking care of him during his illness. She thought about the decision she had come to. First, she would make sure his funeral was in the pavilion of the veterans, of the veterans with a ceremony and military protocol. Then, as he had wished, she will bury him close to the fallen soldiers in the war. She picked up the phone and called Sarah, her daughter, to tell her what had happened. Your dad died a few minutes ago, she said. She also told her daughter they needed to discuss some family matters before his burial. Her daughter cried, and she said a few words of comfort, then hung up the phone and went to the kitchen. She turned off the coffee maker as she did every day and absentmindedly prepared 2 cups. She took down from the shelf all the little jars of medicine with tiny writing that explained the kind of medication and how each should be administered. Then she collected medical formulas, biopsy tests, the doctor's diagnosis that had accumulated through that year. She piled everything on the dining table and then put all of it in the trash. She followed the same routine every day, only today she started a few hours earlier. She moistened a cloth with wood lotion and proceeded to buff and made the piano shiner, and then went upstairs shining the handrails as she climbed the staircase. She then descended, swiping the stairs, and when she reached the living room, she looked at Joe's bedroom and saw his bare feet. She had never seen them before and hardly remembered any of his body features. During those 10 years, she lived with him, living with Joe. She only saw him naked a few times, but did not recall any particular or peculiar trait on his body. She covered his feet with a blanket and closed the door of the room. Almost at 11, her 3 daughters arrived, Sarah, the oldest, Linda, and Rosario. After a few warm greetings and hugs, Emily turned to the girls. Before you go into his room, I want to ask you a favor. She fidgeted a bit. I took care of him for all of this year, and therefore I have some rights. Explain yourself, Mom, said Sarah. I don't want her to know about his death. Mother, don't you think it's too late to hold those grievances? I am his wife, Emily replied, and she is the mother of his son. If she wants to know, let her come to find out. Oh, Mother, we have already decided she needs to know. The family conversation was over. Emily called the funeral home to arrange Joe's funeral, and then she sat by the window. She saw Sarah crossing Oak Street. Before entering the courtyard of Rose's house, Sarah stopped on a small bridge surrounded by lilacs, bamboo stems, and some overgrown bushes that were the signal of an abandoned place. She looked at the house. It has nothing to attract the attention of any who pass by except for the column of smoke that rose from the chimney. The oak plant in the courtyard stood like the only authority that guarded the house. Sarah also looked at the small park space her father built when they were little, so she had a sister were little, so she and her sister could play with their autistic brother. She noticed the space had lost the wooden tunnel and the iron spider they once drove on was hidden under the grass. The carousel with its fade colors was tilted to the side, and one of the seats of the swing moved back and forth as the wind rushed through the park. Whoever passed by the other house on Oak Street wouldn't believe the children's shouting had once cheered the street in the afternoon so long ago. So that is the end of chapter number 1.
Okay, and I think I'll jump in here. That was really great, Uriel, but we don't want to give away too much here. So I think that sets the book up beautifully. And I think at this point, we should go into an interview with you, and then anybody that wants to find out what really happens with the book can buy it, because it's a wonderful book, and that set it up beautifully. Great first chapter. Back to you, Carol, so for an interview. You're muted. Muted.
There we go. Yeah, Uriel and I talked about this a little bit earlier, and we agreed that this would be a good point at which to have some question and answers period, or some comments. I just wanted to ask a question first, and then the rest of you are welcome to ask questions. What was your inspiration for this novel?
Well, the moment, the inspiration of the novel was a single event that happened. It was in 2006 when my father-in-law died, and so we were in the funeral home with my ex-wife, and people were coming to visit the coffin. And there was a line, to go in and see the coffin, seeing his face in this coffin. And I was standing up a little bit close to the coffin with my ex-wife. And then a family, a lady came with all her kids. And apparently this family was dysfunctional. They live in front of the house where my mother-in-law and my father-in-law live. Across the street, they were living in there, and it was a family that the mother was the only one taking care of the family, and the kids were probably ranged between 6 to probably 12 years old. And so there were 5 kids that she came, to visit the coffin. And so they passed, and when they finished seeing my father-in-law in the coffin, the mother came to talk to my ex-wife, and she got from her pocket, from her pen, $5 bill, and then handed to her, to my ex-wife, and say, well, here you have this is the only thing that I have. And I was present, and then my ex-wife looked at me and asked me, what should I do? And then I said, well, just get him, So that was pretty much the spark. And at that moment, I was working as a substitute teacher in the high school of the town, where the story is developed. So the following day was I had to go to teach to this high school, and I got in the classroom, and I was supposed to teach a class. Well, I didn't teach the class. I just sat down and started writing the whole hour. Went back home and kept writing. So that was pretty much the way how that was the spark of the novel.
Right. And so
so what is the relation here for the novel is the fact that that is pretty much set in that little town in southern Illinois. No Town, for example, is the name that is given to that town in the book. Is No Town, and so that is the relationship with the novel, very much the settings and the whole universe pretty much was is set in that little town.
Wonderful. Yeah. Anybody going to add question, comment?
How long did it take you to write it?
That is a great question. So I started writing it in 2007. By 2010, I had already the whole book. It was probably around 500 pages, but I didn't like it. I showed it to some friends, and they said, "Well, it's readable, but you had to do more work." And then with all of the the things related to my job, I forgot about the novel. And then I went back to work in the novel in 2018. And then no, before 2018, in 2015. So I went to the novel and kept working on it, making corrections and different editing. I sent the book to an editor in New York, and at that moment it was very long. It was over almost 600 pages, and so this editor did a major cuts, and it went down to 270. Plus, the corrections that Candice did. So yeah, so it took me probably around 10 years. And I am working now in another one, but that is gonna take me shorter, not that long.
Yeah, and I have talked to writers who say that writing a novel takes that amount of time, right?
Yeah, I remember reading. I don't know if you are familiar with Marguerite Yourcenar, the French writer. She wrote Memoirs of Hadrian, which is one of my favorite books. And it took her 25 years to write that book. And all because she had to do a different search, because this is from the time of the Roman Empire. Hadrian was one of the emperors, Roman emperors. So it's about Hadrian. So it took her a long time to write that book. But it's a masterpiece, and it's one of my favorite books.
And I understand that you're now working on making a Spanish version of The Other House, which should be coming out shortly, which will be wonderful.
Yeah, I am still working on it, and probably would say probably in 2 weeks, probably less than 2 weeks, it's going to be ready.
Excellent. Back to Carol.
Yes, I was curious about your academic background, which is largely science, and how that background might have helped you along with your creative side. Is there a relationship there between the two?
The relationship that my scientific background has with my writing, and in particular with The Other House, is the fact that the Other House always you can see some touch or some comments on science, on biology, animals, parasites, evolution, the conflict between science and religion. So in that regard, that there is a relationship. There is something there.
Yes, in fact, it sounds like it helped you build the environment that helps the story along, right? That,
yeah.
The situations, the cultural and those kinds of situations that are going on around the characters.
And and the scientific formation, has helped me, because to be a scientist, we had to have a great sense of observation. We had to have that ability to observe, nature and what is going on. And we have to find in nature patterns and describe those patterns. So my observation in science has helped me very well in the process of writing because I am a person who always is in the process of inquiring and asking myself and seeing different things. So it's also part of it.
That's an excellent answer. The idea that you're always looking at the meaning of things, and science really, has that kind of impact on you and on your creative side. Anybody else have anything they would like to say? Now, Candace, from Kim. I have found that science and history both reflect in the characters and personalities with a background. Just hang on here. I need to pull that up. With a background in science and how they're described and developed. Is this true? So shall I read that again? So that, because it's a question for you. I've found that science and history both reflect in the characters and personalities with a background in science and how they are described or developed. Is this true?
I think it's true. It's true that that there is an influence of our background, our past, and it has a big impact in our personalities. For example, going back to the other house, and there are one of the main character, who is Joe, the dead man. For example, he's a person that always is looking for questions, but he is chased by his phantoms from the war, from the Vietnam War. And we know the Vietnam War is in our modern history is one of the main events that change pretty much our lives everywhere in this planet. So I think we our behavior is a reflection of what happened in the past, and writers, we take advantage of that, those events, and we have the job of describing these events and the effects of those events in humans in a simple descriptive way, or in a poetic way, right? For example, if it is a poet, put it in a musical way. Write a prose, put in a long story with some passages that may be very poetic, and some other passages that probably are not that poetic, but are very, very, important in the development of the whole writing. Did I answer the question?
Yes, thank you so much. I couldn't try to say it all. I was like, I'll have to type.
Yes, I should say something real quickly here. Kim Malinowski actually is going to have a launch coming up in a few more weeks. She's done a great take on writing a poetry book on Phantom Reflections, all about the Phantom of the Opera, but she's put a whole new twist on it. It's terrific, really. I just wanted to put that little push in there for you, Kim. So now back to the main act.
Anybody else have something to offer or question, comment? I was interested in something in the write-up for the book about a woman in an American town where events unfold in a Kafkian manner. I wonder if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yes.
Without giving too much away, sorry.
Yeah, that is a another interesting question as well. Well, Kafka is also one of my greatest writers, and for example, now talking about the now or the other house. Uh, Being the story being set in a small town in southern Illinois where weird things happen, things that probably in any normal society will never happen. So that is very much the Kafkian way of developing the story. For example, two guys getting a feud. Joe, for example, getting a feud with the mayor of the town. And this is a long time feud that both of them have. They are enemies. And one day they decide that they need to solve this feud. And the only way how they decide to solve this problem is just play the Russian roulette. That is very Kafkian. And then I remember some friends asked me, but we are living in the 21st century and that never happened. And they say, yes, it's happening. People still play the Russian roulette. Not long ago back in South America, in my country, I think it was Ukrainian guy and a Colombian guy far away in the rural area in Colombia. They played the Russian roulette, and one of them died. I think it was the Ukrainian guy died. So, but going back to the Kafkian thing is, some events, that probably are very weird, and that is one of them.
What I find interesting is there's so many subplots in it. There's so many different things happening with different people, and yet it's all tied together. You're a master. You're a master.
Yeah, and another thing, I remember one of my colleagues bought the book to give it to his daughter because she wants to be a writer, and then he said write something. I want your signature and dedication. And then he asked me, well, that is a nice one. And so she started reading the book, and she right now is probably halfway, and she said, wonderful. I never had read something like this, that where strange things happen.
It's an amazing book, that's for darn sure. I love it. Yeah.
I'm certainly going to get my hands on it and read it. I'm intrigued. Absolutely.
Yeah, and there are some other events as well that not that much compared with Kafka, but with Gabriel Garcia Marquez, for example, the fact that one of Joe's friend, for example, one day he loses his mind and brings to his house, a beautiful house, all of these herds of goats. And he lived with these goats in his house. So that is something, that is very, very different.
It is, but the interesting thing when you're reading it, the lead up to knowing who he is and how he is mentally challenged, it seems quite normal that the goats would be in the house with him. It's just amazing the way you lead up to that.
And now going back to that, the same event of the goats, and well, whoever reads it and say, well, this is kind of weird, right? But the whole story about the goats is based on a real situation that happened in Louisiana. It was in 1998 when I just arrived in the United States. I read this news, of a woman in Louisiana living with goats in her house. And she had like a 20 or so goats inside of the house. So, so yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions? There must be more questions. There must be. There comes Kim.
I'm gonna try to actually say it this time. It gets a little loud in the car, but you said that you're having a translation, or at least like a redone in Spanish, and I was wondering, are there going to be subtle differences or anything of that nature? Because some things are richer in other languages than in others, and when I translate, sometimes it doesn't come out right. And I was wondering, are there going to be any changes?
Yeah, I think there was an interference that I couldn't hear your question very well.
I'm going to try, Kim.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to what I heard. I think what Kim was asking was sometimes in translations it's hard to get the exact same kind of story, not the same story necessarily, but the same incident. And how do you deal with that?
The nuances.
It's interesting question as well. It's difficult. It's very, very challenging to do a translation from English to Spanish, and I will say the same situation is vice versa, the other way around. In particular, in some moments, for example, when you have a comparison or a metaphor or an expression in English which is very, very poetic, you read it in English and it has a sound, it has music, in that phrase or sentence, and then the translation into Spanish is going to lose all of that musicality, and that is one of the main challenges. And then you have to think about it for hours, sometimes days. You write it, for example, that you do the translation in few minutes, and you write it, and then you say, well, but it doesn't sound. But 3 days later, you are in the car, you are in your office, and you get back to that sentence. And then you say, oh, I got the precise sentence for that translation, and then you do it. But most of the time, it is very challenging.
Sounds like
one of the thing is sorry to interrupt you, Carol. One of the things that is part of the book is that I start writing it in English and in Spanish, and sometimes I kept writing in English, sometimes in Spanish. So when I finished the book, it was in English. So I had to go back and start translating what I had written in Spanish into English, and then I had the whole book in English. So, and now that with all the corrections, editings, and so I had to start translating it into Spanish. Yeah.
So that sounds like it probably added time to your time to completing the book as well. That kind of extra work that went into that. Yeah. Sometimes is the in my case I sit down to write and I get the pencil and I start writing, and it's in English what I am writing, and then later on I say, well, I need to keep writing, and I go and keep writing in Spanish. It's something that it depends on in a given moment, what is the moment when my brain is, what language my brain is turned on in a given moment.
I think also you, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be mistaken here, but I believe you go to the Amazon quite often. And
Yes.
do you
Yeah.
go annually or just every couple of years?
And annually, I go every year. Because of the pandemics, I stopped, but I went. I went last year, and I didn't go this year. But I am planning. That is part of the one project that I have. Bringing microscopes to the high schools in the Amazon, all the different high schools in the Amazon area. So, and I grew up in the Amazon. And I am writing a children book for a story that develops in the Amazon rainforest. I am halfway already, and it has very nice stories about a boy that grew up in the Amazon. Mm.
So do you go right into the dangerous parts where there's wild, poisonous animals?
I do.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, now is different because there's been a lot of colonization of humans in the rainforest, and now we see paved highways and industrial areas and hospitals and universities. But by the time I was a kid, it was different, and there were animals everywhere, and we were in contact with the jungle. We had the jungle just in the backyard, and it was very common that one day we were having a meal, a lunch, and all of a sudden it was an invasion of ants that passed by and invaded the house, and millions of ants, and we had just to get out of the house and stay in the patio waiting for the whole invasion to go, and it took like 2 or 3 hours.
Did they eat a lot of stuff that was on your table or
No,
anything?
they just passed by the house, and they didn't, the ants didn't do anything. Just like a migration that passed by, and it was a random migration and a random situation that the house was in the path.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
so like that there were other invasions. For example, wild pigs that came to the town and invaded the town, and then they left. So it's, I mean, living in the Amazon rainforest is very interesting. I mean, for a person who likes writing, is a source of inspiration.
Now, you said you sent a picture to me, and you're with, is it a wild boar where you're holding it? It's an amazing photo.
That is a tapir. A tapir?
Oh, tapir.
What's a tapir?
It's a mammal related to horses.
Oh.
And they belong to the same family, and they are large. They are probably the size of a human.
Yeah.
But those animals are so nice. They are not aggressive, very easy to domesticate. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Kim has a question here. She says, oh, wow, have you considered writing about the differences in the Amazon? Or maybe you already have. It would be wonderful. Wow, the migration of the ants would be a perfect flash memoir.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's in the book that that is the project that I am, probably will get back to that book, the children book, and probably in 2 or 3 years when I finish the one that I am working now. It has some stories that they touches the ants invasion to the house. Yeah.
I just can't imagine that.
I'd be running out the back door.
I know. I think I'd be hesitating to move back in, but there you go.
And I can tell you stories. My girlfriend, she's the person that
He
now
has tons of
is
Amazon stories, and even I had never heard the ant story.
there we go. There we go. She's my girlfriend, and
Mary?
Yes.
Ah, hi, Mary.
Hi.
Hi, Mary.
Hi.
so she's the one.
Yes,
that
the story with about the Amazon book is the one I'm very interested in. The Amazon stories are incredible.
I'll bet.
Yeah. Any story in particular you remember, Mary?
Well, one of my favorites is the piranha bite, but you were older for that one.
Yeah. So yeah, it's I consider myself blessed, for being a human being that grew up in an environment like that. Is incredible. It's been a source of inspiration, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And what about the piranha?
Oh, well, the piranha was, well, that happens a little bit later when I was already grown up. We went to I was working with this company. I was already a fish guy working with fish, and I was working for the British Petroleum that sent to the forest to do an inventory of animals and plants, and so we were in group, different biologists, and I was the guy who studied the fish. So I was with another colleague collecting fish, sampling fishes in this area, very, very rural area, pristine, no human being was around. And so we were in this very nice river, and it was very hot. And so we took a break in the boat that we were, collecting the fish. And so I was I was sweating, and it was very hot. So I started, putting our water to my face like this. And then all of a sudden, as I was doing this, my other colleague said, "What do you have in your hand?" And then I said, "What?" And then when I looked, it was a piranha hanging up from here. And I don't know, you can see the scar right here.
Oh, yeah. Holy mackerel. Did you have to pull them off, or what happened?
No, it just fell off, but it was there in my hand, biting since probably 1 minute ago. I mean, right from the moment I start, putting a water in my face. The thing is that I didn't sense the bite.
Ooh.
Because apparently piranhas, like any other animal that feed on human blood, they have in the saliva some sort of anesthetics that makes the skin, senseless. So, and I didn't feel the bite.
I wonder if you hadn't noticed it, how far in it would have gone.
Those are the strange things that can happen in such an environment. Yeah, and it's so sad that we are losing it. We are losing it because of the global warming. We are losing the Amazon. So that is one of my concern now. Yeah.
Does it still get as much rain?
It gets rain very much, but but the situation is that there is so much deforestation, much more from some countries, for example, Brazil, the south part of the Amazon rainforest. That area is gone because Brazil has deforested it for timber, as well as to transform the area into grassland for cattle, and so it's terrible what is going on right now down there. And plus, another problem that is going on right now is the mining, the illegal mining for gold. So it's very common now to get in a plane and see big areas devastated by illegal mining. And one of the things is that once the forest is gone, it's hard to recover because this is a fragile environment. Yeah, the Amazon is very fragile.
Yeah. Wow. Carol, you're muted. Carol?
Yep. No, I know. I was just listening to that and thinking about the poor earth that we inhabit, right? We're just destined to somehow destroy it, or the
And I think in the novel there is a moment, I believe one part of the novel that situation is touched.
Good. Yeah.
You know, they say that trees have an underground network that they communicate by, and they send, if a tree's sick, they send nutrients or stuff to it, so they know what's going on. And I wonder how awful those other trees feel when they see people, well, trees they know, dying and suffering, and it must be awful for them.
Yeah. That is right, and there is an interconnection between trees from the same species and also within trees of different species. There is a relationship, and by the way how they they get the nutrients from the ground, for example, and if this. We are talking about a jungle that has been there for millions of years. And those millions of years, all of these different species, they have evolved different relationships. For example, the release of some substances that can affect the other species, or influence the other species to develop other kind of substances for the first tree that get some advantages. It's amazing how plants have that kind of relationship, not only in the ground but also in the canopy as well.
Years ago, there was a book out, you may have heard of it, but it was amazing. They actually had these two women on TV. It was called Psychic Discoveries Behind the Iron Curtain. And they were Russian. Did you ever read that? They had flowers, and it was just so interesting. They'd say, "Oh, you're so beautiful," and the flowers were just nice. And then they'd start yelling at them or play some heavy rock music, and the plants would kind of close all up. It was just amazing. So they're very sentient in their own way.
Oh yeah, they are.
Yeah,
they are. And there are some other plants that are so capable of competing with other species. For example, they have the canopy, the leaves and the branches, and some species, try to grow underneath, close to the stem of the plant. But this plant doesn't like that, because those other new trees growing below, they are going to be competition for food and water and space. So this plant develops or evolved during millions of years some sort of poison that kill the plants that are trying to grow, around the plant.
Sort of like a
Yeah,
cattle rancher with a gun shooting the people encroaching on his ranch.
yeah, it's amazing, amazing. All the different things the plants, have done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing, really amazing. Yeah,
Mhm.
so much we don't know, so much that we're
Oh,
ignorant of.
yeah.
But the
Mhm.
one thing we do know is you must read The
That's
Other
right,
House. That we
exactly,
know.
absolutely. That's a certainty. Yes, exactly. So thank you so much, Uriel.
You're
I'm so
welcome.
glad. I'm so glad that I had a chance to listen to you read from that book. And uh, as I say, I'm really anxious to get a copy of it so I can read the rest of
Mhm.
it. Yeah, yeah. It sounds really exciting and
Yeah.
well read or well written. Absolutely. So if anybody else has something they want to say for the last moment.
Well, I should say the book's available worldwide. Anybody wants
Yes.
to buy it. So if you have any friends in England or down in Australia or over even in India, you can just tell them, go into your local bookstore, ask for the book, and it can be ordered through distributors. The distributors got outlets all over the world.
Yes. And this is the iPage, right?
Yeah, it's
iPage.
Ingram Sparks iPage catalog, and they've
Right.
got their network is, well, they're almost as evolved as Amazon plants with their network.
Well, it's good that we learn from the Earth. All right. So thank you.
Before we close it, I want to thank you, Carol, and also Candice. Thank you so much for this. For liking the novel and doing all the marvelous work that you have done, doing the editing, and for publishing it. Is the beginning, and that is a great thing, and I really am thankful of that, Candice.
You are most welcome. I'm just happy that I was the person that is actually publishing this book, because as time goes by, the tests and the tides of time will bear out that this book is going to be one that lasts. It's a great novel. I just love it. Don't think I've read, well, I guess I've read one comparable, but I haven't read one that I'd say, oh, that's way better than The Other House, because there isn't one in my mind.
Yeah. So yeah, and thank you for attending, Mary, Kim, and Robin. Thank you so much. And I hope you like the book.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay, so Carol will close it off.
Yeah, yes, I will close it off. I will
right.
I will thank Uriel so much for your reading, so much for your writing, and so much for being here and sharing not only the work that you have just published through Candace, but also some very interesting and stimulating stories from your background and from your heritage. That was wonderful, an added gift. Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.